What's up, fellow Cinders? Welcome to the show. Having a great time here in the great Midwest, St. Louis, Missouri. I'm at home for a couple weeks, passing through, and thought that I would take some time to make a video about backpacking gear. I've had some people reach out to me and ask me questions, and I thought, you know what, why not? I lived out of a backpack for 5 months. I've gone through a lot of gear. I've bought a lot of gear. I own a lot of gear. So I feel like, you know, hopefully this will help. If you've never backpacked before, this is my attempt to force you in to a sport that you may or may not like. I love backpacking, but it's definitely type 2 fun. So if you don't know what the types of fun are, I'm going to learn you right now. Type 1 fun, things that are actually fun. Type 2 fun, things that are fun like 2 days later once you've recovered. Type 3 fun, things that are traumatic and you remember forever. Backpacking is between type 1 and type 2 fun. There are moments that you're like, wow, this is the most fun I've ever had. And then there are moments where you're like, I can't wait to go home. So if you've never backpacked before, I'm imploring you to go. Try it. If you hate it, you'll have great memories. If you love it, you'll have great memories. Either way, it's a win-win for all of us. So there are a lot of reasons that people have never gone backpacking before. Maybe you don't have any friends to go with, or you don't have anybody that actually knows what they're doing. Maybe you don't have the right gear and you don't want to spend the money. Maybe you just have never thought about it. Well, I'm going to help eliminate some of those fears. I can give you some tips on what gear to buy, how to do it cheaply, what gear is really worth your money and what's not. And I also can give you hopefully some tips on where you can go, what you can do, the length of trip, etc. And I just want to let you guys know, if you have any questions or you need somebody to go backpacking with for the first time, you have an open invite. Text me, Instagram me. I'd love to. I love backpacking. I love teaching people about backpacking. So if you ever need any questions, as I said, send me a message. Or just text me and I'll help you out. So I'm gonna spend a few minutes. I'm gonna go through each piece of backpacking gear that I think's necessary to go backpacking. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of options, maybe a budget option and more of a higher level, expensive, high quality option. And also talk about just a little bit about what you should look for when you're buying gear. So to start out, here is a chart I made with most of the required gear you're gonna need to go backpacking. Some of it you can deem as optional. And this is by far not an exhaustive list. For instance, I don't go through and break out exactly what you need for first aid and things like that, and I probably missed a couple things, but this is a good starting point for you if you're looking at what gear you already have and what gear you need to get if you're going backpacking. I'm going to link this in the comment section, so take a look at it if you would like. Let's talk about backpacks. The backpack's the most important item, period. I mean, if you have an uncomfortable backpack, you're going to hate your life. I can guarantee you that your first backpacking experience will not be very fun. Having a comfortable, well-fitting backpack is a necessity. And I would recommend when you're buying a backpack, going to a place like REI, going to an outdoor store of some kind, and having somebody who's professionally trained fit you for a backpack. And you're like, how complex can it be? Not very complex, but having a waist belt that fits properly is imperative, because when you're backpacking, you want to be carrying your weight in your hips and in your legs and not in your shoulders. If you're carrying all your weight in your shoulders, you're going to have a bad time. As far as backpack brands go, I think Osprey's the best. A lot of people agree with me. I've never heard anyone complain about Osprey. I have 2 Osprey bags and they're awesome. They're a great fit. The suspension on them is the most comfortable I've ever found. They're really high quality. I've never seen anybody's Osprey bag tear or anything like that. Also, I say Osprey and Osprey. I don't even know what the right pronunciation is, but just forgive me. I think if there's a place you want to spend a little extra money, it would be on a backpack. There are more budget options. I know REI has a brand. There's Kelty. There's North Face. There's all these other brands. I think Osprey's the best. You know, I'm not saying that those other brands suck by any means or won't serve you well, but I think that spending a little more for a premium brand here is going to help you out a long term. And these backpacks last a long time. I've hiked over 1,000 miles with some of my backpacks and they still look great. They still work fine. I still love them. So you can see here on the left, I'm recommending as a best buy the Osprey Atmos AG65 for men and the Osprey Aura AG65 for women. It's pretty much the same backpack, just for men and women. I don't know what the difference is, but these are amazing backpacks. They are some of the most comfortable backpacks I've ever found, and I really can't say enough. Go to REI, check these out. As far as a budget option, I can't really recommend this bag. I looked at it and I was like, it looks good. It's a little bit cheaper. I guess the Ospreys are running $270, $275, and that one runs $150. So Don't take my word for it. Go check it out. But, you know, it looks like it does the job. Let's talk sizing. Backpacks come in liters. I love the metric system. We should do away with the imperial system. Anyway, most backpacks that you're going to be backpacking with are going to be between 40 and probably 70 liters. So day packs, something you would use for a short day hike, would be below 40 liters. 40 to 70 is a great backpacking range. For you starting out, I would recommend 60 to 65 liters. And here's why. You could probably do with less. You could probably do with a 50 liter. You also could make it work with like a 75 liter. I think 60 liters is about the right range to make sure that you don't bring your whole house while you backpack, while also making sure that you have enough room for the necessities. When you start backpacking, you're going to bring too much stuff. You know, as you go on and as you backpack more and more, you're going to realize, I want to cut weight. I want to cut size. I really don't need that fold out chair or that sauna that I'm bringing with me. And so you're able to cut down on a lot of things. When you start out, you're going to bring some extra items. You're going to need that extra room. I typically hike for a 3 to 5 day trip. I hike with a 65 liter. But if I was going to do an overnight now, I probably could do with, say, a 50 or 55 liter. You don't need a 70 liter plus, period. I mean, unless you're going on a 10-day backpacking trip or a 7-day backpacking trip with no resupply, which I hope you're not doing for your first trip out, you don't need that much room. You're going to end up filling it up. There's an old adage in backpacking. If you have the space, you're going to fill it. So don't do that to yourself. You're going to end up bringing a lot of crap you don't need, and that's just heavy. Let's talk shelters. So you might be thinking tents, obviously, but actually there's a lot of variety here, and a lot of people I know use different things. So there's about 4 different categories. The first, cowboy camping, the most hardcore, the most rewarding, also the highest risk. Cowboy camping is where you throw your pad down under the stars with your sleeping bag and you just sleep out there. The pros are it's amazing to sleep under the stars. It's really fun. I like the risk of being killed by a cougar in the middle of the night. It makes me have awesome dreams. And, you know, it's just freeing. It's easy. When you've hiked all day, all you want to do is just sleep. The cons are everything else. You get dew on your sleeping bag in the middle of the night. Mosquitoes attack your face. Black bears try to snuggle with you in the middle of the night. I mean, the options are endless, so you really need to know the weather conditions and really what you're doing. Like, I wouldn't cowboy camp in Yellowstone, for instance, because I don't really like grizzly bears sniffing my face. But if I was in Utah, it's not going to rain, so I might do it. If it's your first time backpacking, probably don't recommend cowboy camping. Second, bivy sacks, the best. Bivy sacks are pretty much just a waterproof sleeping bag cover that you can pretty much use like your cowboy camping, except if it rains, you don't die. Also, it keeps bugs out, it keeps dirt out. It's just a great solution. They're usually lighter than tents. I love mine. I wish I had carried mine on the PCT. If I had to do it again, I would totally take a bivy sack. It's awesome. Third are tarps, which suck. Tarps sound great in theory. They're really light, you know, like they're just like, you can get an ultralight tarp that weighs practically nothing. And you're like, well, that sounds great. I can cowboy camp when it's dry and I'll put my tarp up when it's wet. Except putting your tarp up sucks. And it's really difficult. It's not like a tent where you just put some poles together and voila. It's like, you're going to have to do all these specific knots and things. And at the end of the day, that's not what you want to do, on top of the fact that you're probably still going to get wet. If you're starting out, don't buy an ultralight tarp. And if you do, make sure you try it out in the yard plenty of times before you go on an extensive trip. Now, tents are by far the most comfortable. I mean, it feels like a little house. It's awesome. Keeps the bugs out, keeps the rain out for the most part. I've woken up in a tent a couple times practically surfing, but they're great. They're heavy. That's the con, always, is they're heavy. They're easy to set up usually, but they're heavy. I don't like carrying the extra weight, but you know, if you're gonna buy a tent, please spend some extra money. Get something that's light. Don't get a 5-pound backpacking tent. Maybe aim for like 3 pounds, 2 to 3 pounds. But make sure it's durable. You know, tents are, you know, it's a double-edged sword. It's nice, but it's painful. So, as far as the weight goes, so you know, if you're starting out, I would probably recommend a tent. I mean, tents are going to be the best option. It's what the majority of people use, but getting something that's lightweight is extremely important. So here's some shelter recommendations. On the Best Buy list, we have a Big Agnes tent. I have a friend that has one very similar to this. They love it. Also a Nemo tent. These are both very light tents, and you can see they're $500. Definitely a little pricey, but as far as getting a high-quality, lightweight tent, I can't personally vouch for these, but if I had to buy one, I'd honestly probably buy the Nemo right now. Done deal. The middle one is a bivy sack. That is one very similar to the one that I have. Love it. I think it's really high quality. It runs, I can't even see it from here, but like 180. And the budget option, it's an REI half dome. One of my friends hiked the PCT with one very similar to this, and it's more in the 200 range. So if you're you don't really want to drop $500, which I completely understand, maybe go for the REI one. Let's talk sleeping bags. Sleeping bags are incredibly important because they're probably going to save your life at some point if you backpack long enough. Mine saved my life multiple times. So what to look for in a sleeping bag? The first thing to think about is the rating system on a sleeping bag. Sleeping bags are rated on a degree level. So 0 degree, 10 degree, 20 degree, 30 degree, and you're like, what does this degree mean? The degrees means this is the minimum temperature that you can use this bag at that you won't die. The temperature rating system, all it's saying is how much down did we put in here to keep you from dying? So a 0 degree bag has a lot of down, it's heavier, and a 30 degree bag has not much down and it's lighter. So what would I recommend for you? I would say a 20 degree bag. A 20 degree bag is the right balance of having enough down to keep you from dying in most seasons. During, like, if you're camping in the Arctic or you're trying to be a penguin or something, I wouldn't do a 20 degree, probably a 0 degree, but a 20 degree bag for most people is going to fit the bill. Another thing to consider is what kind of sleeper are you? I am a literal furnace. Like, Nebuchadnezzar could throw me in his fire and I wouldn't burn up. But a lot of other people I know sleep very cold, and they're like an ice cube or like a glacier at night. So you might want to think about getting a little bit warmer of a bag if you know that about yourself. I had friends on the PCT who hiked with a 0 degree bag because their mom was a glacier. Other things to consider is, do you want a hood on your bag? Hoods can keep in a lot of heat, and if it's really cold, having a hood is really helpful. You can also use a beanie or a balaclava, but having a hood can be really helpful. Another thing to consider is, do you want quilt capabilities? So I don't like sleeping in a sleeping bag. I sleep on my stomach. I pull my knees up to my chest when I sleep like a fetus. Not really, but I like to sleep a little spread out, and so sleeping in a sleeping bag is kind of miserable for me. So I have a sleeping bag that can completely unzip into a quilt, and I just use this with a silk sheet liner while I camp, and I love it. It is literally the best investment I've ever made, albeit very expensive. As far as recommendations go, as I said, I can't get around ever buying any sleeping bag but the Feathered Friends Flicker, but it is $400, so you're probably looking at me like I'm crazy right now. But just think, I lived out of a tent for 5 months, so I have the right to do that. A budget option, the blue sleeping bag I showed earlier in this segment is the Kelty Cosmic 20 sleeping bag. I have a little bit of an outdated model. They have a more updated model, but it looks like it's running about $130, you know, I can vouch for it. It's a good bag. It does the job. It keeps you warm. You really, you know, if you're just getting into backpacking, you don't need to spend a lot more than about $130 or $150. This bag will meet the needs. It has a hood on it. Would recommend this one. I'm going to throw this in here. People are like, do I need a pillow? There are some blow-up travel pillows. I've long since ditched those. I don't want to carry the weight of an extra pillow. I literally take a dry sack, which if you don't know what a dry sack is, just Google it. It's something that keeps your stuff dry, and usually you need some for backpacking. I just stuff it full of some clothes. I use it as a pillow. Not the best, but it works. It saves space. I do have like a quasi foam blow-up pillow that actually works really well. I don't carry it though because it's kind of heavy, and you're like, how heavy is kind of heavy? And I'm like 5 ounces. But anyway, if you really need a pillow to sleep, go for it, but most people I know don't carry a separate pillow. It's not necessary. Let's talk sleeping pads. You have 3 options. You can sleep on the ground. That's pretty cool, but you're going to be miserable. 2, you can get a foam pad, which is pretty much a yoga mat. And 3, you can get a blow-up mattress. Blow-up mattress is a strong term. It's more just a blow-up pad. So sleeping on the ground, you shouldn't do it. Second, foam pads, that's what I'm using currently. I haven't used it extensively, so I can't swear by the comfort level, but On the PCT, I went through 2 or 3 blow up mattresses, which I love. They're super comfortable. They're kind of a pain to blow up before you go to bed, but overall they're very comfortable, but they get holes in them. And that's a pain. I hate waking up in the middle of the night 2 or 3 times to blow up a mattress. And they keep you warmer. They do keep you warmer than a foam pad, but a foam pad's super easy. You literally just throw it down, you sleep on it. It's not going to get any holes in it, hopefully. And so if you're starting out, you can't really go wrong with a foam pad or one of the very light sleeping pads. One thing to worry about with sleeping pads is some of them are heavier and you're going to be adding some weight. So just do your research. The issue is that the lighter ones are more prone to holes, which was my problem. But it's kind of a personal preference. If you have trouble sleeping, get a blow up pad. If you can sleep anywhere, if you're used to sleeping in cars and planes, just get a foam pad. It's easier, lighter, etc.
As far as the foam pad goes, I'd recommend the Thermarest Z-Lite Soul or one of the other Z-Lites. Extremely light. They're just a yoga mat. I mean, it's $50. It's cheap. You know, I mean, you could honestly probably find just a thick yoga mat for cheaper than that. Just go with that. As far as blow-up pads, the Nemo, I've never used it. If I had to buy one today, that's what I would buy. And it looks like it's running about $160 to $180, which is definitely pricey. But the one in the middle is the one that I used for the PCT. I went through 2 or 3 of them. They're very pricey, and they literally leak all the time. So don't buy that one unless you want and really enjoy waking up in the middle of the night to blow up your mattress in case you're a serial killer, and you probably should get that checked out.
Let's talk food. Let's talk food and water. So a question I got a lot coming off trail was, how did you drink water? Which is a reasonable question. You know, I mean, the pioneers just got giardia or dysentery or whatever, which I risked multiple times. But really, the easiest way to filter water is through a Sawyer squeeze. Most people use that. There's also a thing called a Katadyn B-Free. A Sawyer squeeze, you can literally just screw on to the end of a water bottle and just push water through it. And you can either drink it right into your mouth or or you can squeeze it into another bottle, and then you have a clean and a dirty bottle. Very light, very clean. You're not going to get sick if you use a Sawyer squeeze. Don't quote me on that.
As far as options, as I said, Sawyer squeeze in the middle, $30. Katadyn B-Free, which cannot attach to a water bottle. You have to use the little pouch, which I think is stupid. $40, not worth the investment. Maybe a little bit better of a filter, but who wants to use that bag? And then on the left, Platypus Gravity Works. This is a 4-liter bag. I have this one. It works amazing. You don't have to squeeze anything, but it is a little bit heavier, and you have these bags, and it's a little ornery. So, and it's $110. So I would only do that if you're planning on like splitting it with your friends and just taking one filtering system on a trip for all your friends.
Bryson's tip of the day. If you're in the high alpine, you're like tired of filtering your water, just look up on the mountain and say, are there cows up there that are pooping in these streams? And if there's not, drink without worry until you get giardia. These filters do get slow over time because sediment builds up in them, and it's painful. It takes a long time to filter your water. You have to flush them pretty frequently. It's the worst. Here is a water bottle. This Sawyer squeeze doesn't actually go on this water bottle because why would you ever use this for anything? But what we use on trail are usually smart water bottles. I don't know why. That's just kind of the standard. Usually, I think it's because they're BPA free, whatever that means. And they're usually bigger. They can come in like a liter or a liter and a half. Get the liter and a half if you're like me and you're an absolute camel. So pretty much what you do, you just screw this boy on, and then you just squeeze water through this. Easy enough, right? Now let's talk stoves. Stoves are completely unnecessary. I went stoveless for over 2,000 miles on the PCT, and I survived. But if you're like, I need a stove, I need warm food, I need warm water, that's fine. You can be a little weak. Here are your options. This is a jet boil. You put a gas canister right there, you put your water in there, it boils it up for you. Then you pour your water into a backpacking meal that's probably going to destroy your stomach, or you drink some tea or something. The pros to a jet boil, they're fast, they're easy, they're all compact. A goldfish could use this. The cons are kind of heavy. They're big, they're bulky, and the pot doesn't have a lot of other uses outside of being a jet boil. What's the alternative? And its alternative is this. So you screw this end onto a gas canister just like a Jetboil, and then this thing makes fire. Pros is that the MSR is lighter, as well as having a separate pot can be helpful in certain circumstances. You can put more different kinds of food in the pot, and eating out of a Jetboil pot's kind of a pain. The cons are you now have two separate items that you're trying to keep track of, and it's not quite as fast as the Jetboil.
So as far as buying options go, again, here's the Jetboil. It's about $110. You can get a little bit of smaller one for a little cheaper. I think that this size though is the best. It does hold a lot of water. You can boil enough water into it to fill up a backpacking meal. On the bottom here, you can see you can get the MSR Pocket Rocket with some sort of titanium pot. You don't have to use this one, but get one that's titanium and that's really light. And my math shows that would be about $80. So you're saving $30 here. You're going to definitely sacrifice a little bit of boiling speed and maybe a little bit of inconvenience as far as having to keep track of two different things. But, I don't know. It's kind of however you say it. Half one dozen the other. What does it say? What's the saying? Whatever.
So let's talk shoes. So with shoes, you have three options. You have hiking boots, hiking shoes, and trail runners. Here's a video of me showing you how to put on some hiking boots. So here's a pro tip. No one who's hiked long distances like the PCT really uses hiking boots. I only knew one girl who used hiking boots. Everyone else wears trail runners. Hiking shoes, there's some people that use like a kind of a hiking shoe, which is kind of a blend of a hiking boot and a trail runner, which I like hiking shoes in general. They're a little heavier, but they can provide some things that a trail runner can't. But my recommendation would be just buy trail runners. They're more comfortable and they dry out a lot faster. And you think, well, I need something that's waterproof. No, you don't. Really, the only time you're gonna need something that's waterproof is if you're hiking through snow, which you're probably not gonna be hiking through snow if it's your first time backpacking or if you're just getting into it. And even then, if it's just a little bit of snow, trail runners will be fine. So a common misconception is I need waterproof shoes in case I will hike in the rain, go over a creek, etc. It's a misconception. Your shoes will get wet if they're going to get wet. If it rains, your hiking boots will get wet. If you have to go over across a stream where your trail runners would get wet, most likely your boots are going to get wet. There are very few instances where the little bit of waterproofing that a hiking boot provides is really going to save you. And on top of that, if a hiking boot gets wet, it stays wet literally forever. It'll be wet when Jesus comes back. Trail runners dry in like 10 minutes. Not literally, but literally. I mean, if you get your trail runners wet, they're going to be dry in like an hour and you're going to be fine. You're going to be a happy camper. But if you have hiking boots to get wet, just good luck. You're going to have trench foot.
All right, here's some recommendations. So the Topos on the right are, well, the older model is what I wore almost exclusively on the PCT. I can vouch for these. Good shoes. Some of the ugliest styling, they've gotten a lot better. Those ones on the right look so much better than the ones that I wore on the PCT. Topo, get your act together, style your shoes. If you look good, you hike good. Anyway, they're great shoes other than that. Really high quality for the most part. Brooks, I own a pair of Brooks Cascadias. Those are the ones in the middle. I own the gray pair though. That red pair is a little eh. And I like the Brooks. They're not that comfortable. I would probably, if I had to hike in them long term, I'd probably put some inserts in them. They're just not that padded. Honestly, if I had to buy a pair today, I would probably buy the Hoka Speed Goats on the left. They're really padded, and they're a good shoe. I know people that have worn them. I know people that have really liked them. Here's my rant about Ultras. So Ultras are pretty popular these days in the hiking community. Ultras, for the most part, are zero drop shoes, which means they have no heel lift. And you may say, well, what's the difference? So it's more of a natural movement for running or for hiking. The shoes fit great. They fit kind of like a glove, which is really nice. It's really comfortable. I have issue with a couple of things. First is if you aren't used to wearing zero drop shoes, hiking in them can really put a lot of stress on your Achilles, on your ankles, and honestly, a lot of the friends I know who had feet issues on the trail wore Ultras. On top of that, Ultras don't have a lot of support, and they kind of fall apart easily. They're not very durable. And so I know they're popular, and I think they're popular because when you try it on, you're like, this fits amazing. But I'd recommend going with something more traditional unless you're very experienced with zero drop shoes.
When it comes to clothing, it's really up to you, and you have to know the situation. If you're hiking in the summer, you probably don't need a lot of warm clothes depending on where you're at. Things that are essential no matter what, you need to bring a top. I usually wear long sleeves with a hood because I don't like getting sunburned, but you can wear short sleeves and use sunscreen, or you can just wear a shirt and not use sunscreen and, do that to yourself. And also in the summer, particularly shorts, maybe you opt for longer hiking pants in the winter. It's kind of up to you, and you have to know, am I going to be hiking through a lot of poison ivy, etc. Bring 2 pairs of socks. If you get one pair of socks wet, you're going to thank me. I think in the summer, make sure you bring a fleece, and always bring a rain jacket unless you're in somewhere that's completely arid. I think a rain jacket will really save you sometimes. Make sure it's Gore-Tex and it's really waterproof. A lot of rain jackets don't actually protect you all that much, and even a Gore-Tex jacket after a while will get soaked through. But bring your rain jacket, if even there's a chance of rain, is extremely important. Optional things, if it's in the winter, I bring a puffy. Puffies are really light, they're really easy to carry, and they provide a ton of warmth. And base layers. A lot of the time they just double as like sleeping clothes or pajamas for me, but bringing like a smart wool top and bottom can save your life, particularly in cold or wet climates. And if you're hiking outside of the range of, say, like June to September, I would always bring base layers. You never know when you're gonna get really cold and need something to warm you up. Things that are optional: rain pants, beanie, and gloves, depending on the season. Always bring a hat. Hats are lifesavers. Don't hike without a hat. And I mean, bring sunglasses too if you're a normal human being. Again, knowing where you're at, bring sunscreen, bug spray if you need it. I hate both. Don't really use either. I'd rather wear long sleeves and just suck it up with the bugs. But, you have to know where you're going. Bringing a little bit of bug spray has saved me in the past. If it gets that bad. But yeah, just know your surroundings and bring some chemicals to poison yourself with. Here's some other tidbits. Bring enough water. And if you don't know how much water is enough, map it out. Map out how many miles you have between water sources, and find some sort of source online to track where water is and if it's actually there. You don't want to be in a situation where you think you're going to have a water source and you don't have one. There is an app called Guthook. It's amazing. It's an app a lot of the time just for long distance type trails, but they're adding more and more trails all the time. And that will tell you where the water is, where camping spots are. All Trails is also another great resource. A lot of time people will write comments in and say, hey, the water's dry here, et cetera, et cetera. I tend to carry somewhere between 1 to 2 liters almost at all times because I'm a literal camel. And I hate being thirsty. Other people tend to carry a liter or so in normal circumstances. In the desert, I would say carry 3 to 4 liters. It's a pain, but it'll save your life. So those are some general recommendations. I would say if you don't really know where the next water source is, carrying 2 to 3 liters is probably best practice. If you're going to be camping somewhere where you can start a fire, maybe bring some tinder, bring some matches and things like that to get a fire going. It can be really nice at the end of a long day. I wouldn't recommend bringing pans and food to cook over a fire unless you're just doing an overnight or something like that, because it's heavy. If you've never backpacked before or you're inexperienced, please, for the love of God, go with somebody else who hopefully is more experienced than you are. There's a lot of instances where search and rescue have to go get people, and believe me, it's not just because they're so experienced and they got in a bad situation. Usually it's because they're stupid. Don't be that person.
Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you've made it this far, you're a champ. I have to commend you. 30 minutes is a long time, even if you're just jumping through. So again, this graphic will be linked below if you want it. But anyway, hope everyone has a great week, and I'll see you next time.